Hello, welcome again. It's time for poetry. So, let's take a look at the poem Africa by Maya Angelou. This poem is basically a perfect example of personification. So, of course, you might want to steal it as the example of personification if you happen to have a little bit of a homework assignment asking you to find some examples of figurative language. That's a hint there. But anyway, so Africa is the personification of the continent of Africa as a woman who has suffered and is now rising up. So we're going to hear all the features of Africa spoken of as if the entire continent were a person. And before I get into the text of the poem, I think it's important to look at some of the language that will help us understand it better. So we'll start with the word rhyme. This is R-I-M-E, so it has nothing to do with sounds rhyming. It's a noun, and rhyme is like frost. It's a kind of frost that you might see when a cloud or fog suddenly freezes onto something. So in this case, it's emblematic of the people of North Europe who might travel through cold climates, and their beards and their hair might be icy with rime. A brigand is a robber, especially a robber who travels in a gang, in a group that comes together to rob and pillage and steal. And brigands of the sea are fundamentally pirates. Ungentled is a very interesting word. It's not a common word at all, but just see it as an inversion. Gentled meaning taught to be gentle and kind. So ungentled being the opposite. They're rough, unkind, not properly taught to be civilized, considerate, sympathetic, and so on. Okay? So ungentled, very rough, not gentle. Vain, as it's used in this poem, is like in the use, he did it in vain. It means futile, hopeless, or unsuccessful. If I say, I tried in vain to stop him, I couldn't stop him. I tried, but I was unsuccessful. That's the meaning of vain. Slain, this is a form of the verb to slay, which means to kill. So if something has been slain, it has been killed. Okay. Stride is basically a way of walking, and it is walking. To stride is to walk, but to me it has a kind of positive connotation, especially as it's used here, of someone walking with a lot of energy and perhaps confidence. Then there's the word lane, which of course is a common word, but I think it's worth taking a look again at how to use the verb lie, and I'm going to attach a document to our assignment so you can review that. But basically, we're talking about the verb to lie, as in like to lie on the sofa. Okay, so properly, I would say in the present, he lies on the sofa. Past, he lay on the sofa. And past participle, he has lain there for a long time. And that's what lain means in this context. A lot of native speakers and writers make occasional mistakes with this because we confuse it with the verb to lay something else down, which has a completely different form. Okay, so let me get into the poem, and then after I read it kind of straight through, we'll look at it one more time, line by line, to make sure we understood it. Okay? So first, a straight read. Africa. Thus she had lain, sugar cane sweet, deserts her hair, golden her feet, mountains her breasts, 2 Niles her tears, thus she has lain, black through the years. Over the white seas, rime white and cold, brigands ungentled, icicle bold, took her young daughters, sold her strong sons, churched her with Jesus, bled her with guns. Thus she has lain. Now she is rising, Remember her pain. Remember the losses, her screams loud and vain. Remember her riches, her history slain. Now she is striding, although she had lain. Okay, so we'll take a look at it line by line, and I think once you have had a chance to really understand it in detail, you can go back and give it another read on your own time and be able to appreciate it, hopefully, just a little bit better. Okay, so thus she had lain. She had been lying in this way. Thus, in this way, she had lain. Sugarcane sweet, deserts her hair, golden her feet, mountains her breasts, 2 Niles her tears. Here we have the physical geography of Africa being described like a body. And with the Sahara Desert being the hair, perhaps, with the gold of South Africa, which produces huge amounts of gold, being the feet of Africa. Sugar cane as being a kind of a produce of the African people, and 2 Niles is a reference to the Blue Nile and the White Nile, which are rivers that feed into the main Nile River. So just the map of Africa, some of its natural resources are being described as if it were part of one huge giant body. Thus she has lain black through the years. Now, in the second stanza, we have the invasion of the Europeans. And that is why it is describing those people coming from over the seas. It describes the rime in the beards and in the hair. Okay, these foreign bandits, robbers. Okay, over the white seas, rime white and cold, brigands ungentled, icicle bold. All of this describes the slave traders who came to Africa. Took her young daughters, sold her strong sons, churched her with Jesus, bled her with guns. Thus she has slain. So it describes a sort of middle period of African history in which the European invaders plundered Africa, enslaved the people, brought a new religion, but also brought a history of violence. And now the last stanza turns to a more hopeful change as Africa rises, but not without a memory of its past. Now she is rising, remember her pain, remember the losses, her screams loud and vain. So it does recall the period of time when Africa could call out, look at the horror that's being done to us, but the screams could not stop the trouble, okay? But now we turn towards a hopeful rise and striding forward, okay? Remember her riches, her history slain, and that's worth paying attention to also, because part of the modern view of Africa is that, unfortunately, so much of the true history of what happened in Africa, its old kingdoms, a lot of its history has been lost or not preserved, or perhaps even to a degree destroyed or suppressed by Europeans. So sadly, a lot of what we could have known about African culture has been suppressed or lost. That's what they mean when they say her history slain. Now she is striding, although she had lain. So we see the image of Africa rising up finally and moving forward. And that is intended to give us our hopeful image of maybe a future strong, empowered Africa. Okay? So I hope that my attempt at a close reading might help you understand it a little better. Let me know if you have any questions about a specific line or the theme. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to just share your own reflections, and I'll see you the next time when I read another poem. Have a good day.